Um, I am the second of three daughters of John and Gwen Rowlands, who ran their butcher's business at the top of Great Arquette Street. And when my father closed his door in 1985, he closed the door on 150 years of meat trading in Aberystwyth. It was very much a family business. My mother always used to say that she had not only married my father, she'd married the shop as well. And as children, we knew my father was very proud of his business and we were very proud of him. And we learned very quickly that it was our job to serve as well. And so we would deliver meat for him and so on. And very quickly, I learned the customer was always right. And when times were really bad, he used to say, you have to hold the candle to the devil himself. So the first things I want to share with you are the set of knives that have spanned all the businesses in Aberystwyth from 150 years ago. These were the knives of my great-great-grandfather. And he ran his business from a farm in Tanraft and at Chancery Castle. These knives are interesting. They are wooden with steel. They have got his name imprinted on the handles, and his name was John William Rowlands. The blades of the knives signify that they were purchased from a butcher's sundry in Cardiff, which was quite unusual because in later years, Victorian times, butchers tended to get their knives from Smithfields in London, and they tended to be from the Rushbrook firm.
Oh, okay.
I've included the spring balance there, but interestingly, when my little sister was born, if my mother couldn't get to the clinic, my father used to hang her off a nappy that he had tied, not the nappy she was wearing, I have to say, and he would wait to check that she was progressing as she should have done.
Oh, how delightful.
Yes, yes. So after William Joel Rowlands, who had, Joel William Rowlands, who had the butcher shop on his farm in Tanraft, his son, who's in the picture here, took over the business.
Right.
And he had this business at 9 North Parade. He started his business actually by walking to town with an animal, and he promised the farmer that he would pay him on his return.
Right.
Nobody would buy this animal. And so he took it jointed to the lead mines in Cwmystwyth, made a huge profit. Apparently, the meat wasn't as tough as it looked, and the miners asked him to return with his meat. And so from there, he started rather a large business. And this is him in Aberystwyth displaying a Christmas meat display. And he was helped by the fact that there was a slaughterhouse at Smithfield Row, which is now Park Avenue in Aberystwyth. This is a picture of the slaughterhouse that was still in existence after the war, World War II. My grandfather is on the right-hand side picture with the bowler hat on, with a cross above his head, but that was, and he would actually advertise in the local paper for people to go to Smithfield to look at his animals. It says here that you can see at the new slaughterhouse next Tuesday, prime Welsh mutton, bacon, pigs and porkers. This show taken all together is the most excellent one. So he was advertising initially for people to see his animals at the slaughterhouse as well as his shop. And then he would also have customers coming to buy meat from meat that had been raised in the local gentry estates. So the advert, which we've just seen, showed that he had meat in from the Prices of Gogerthan. He had meat from the Powells of Nanteos, the Lisbons of Crosswood. They were all supplying my grandfather, and he was very proud to say this. As time went on, the knives were passed then to my father, but he traded almost in the same way as my great-grandfather had. He had his shop display, although the shop now was a closed shop because the butcher shop at North Parade had a metal shutter that was pulled up, and it was exposed to the street with health and safety regulations. During the 50s and 60s, you saw shops being closed up. And then he had the shop at Ceredigion, and he would display his meat there, use the slaughterhouse. And I can remember as a little girl running from Alexandra Road Primary School down Park Avenue to Smithfield, where the shop van would be waiting for us. And then we would go and visit the farms for him to see what he was buying for the shop for the following week. So he knew the farmer, he knew the animals, he knew the husbandry that went on, and he was very assured that he would be selling quality meat. Yeah, well, the smell of raw meat has never left me, and in actual fact, when I went to clean the holster for the knives, there was a faint smell because they'd been kept in a spice box that my father used when he was making sausages and such like. And so, it depended when you went to the shop what you smelt. So, for example, you'd smell raw meat. You'd smell the faggots that he cooked. And he used to make trays of them on a Monday and a Thursday, and the cooked meat smell. What was on the counter, you smelt. It wasn't watered down in any way. So we used to. It wasn't so much the smell, because yes, you could smell the meat. Yes, you did smell all the cleaning agents, because the shop had to be thoroughly washed down every night and scrubbed down on a Saturday as well. So you had all those sort of clinical smells. But it was the taste of things, and the taste, he used to make his own sausages, tongue, pressed tongue, brawn, faggots, pate, the flavors. If you shut your eyes, you knew what you were eating. There was no mistake of it. And he always used to say, a good piece of meat does not need anything else. It sells it by itself. So, and to go back to what you were saying about people being able to track meat.
Yes.
Now, well, BSE changed it all, because whilst the butchers lost control of their food chain in the 60s when the slaughterhouse shut, and meat was then processed in abattoirs remotely away from Aberystwyth, so you didn't see anything. You didn't know where they'd come from, how old the animals were. BSE changed that, because then they introduced again a tracking system, and butchers now are able to advertise where they got their meat from and which farms they came from. So there is, more reassurance. If you think of Rob Rattray in town, or they are able to display exactly where the meat came from. So, you see a full circle all the time. The knives have done their full circle now. The wrought ironwork above the window in the pictures, that's still there. The shop front is the same, apart from it used to have shutter rather than the glass window.
Right. Okay.
So it is the same. And then my father, as you can see from the pictures of the bags, the bags were not only used to hold commodities, they were used to advertise where the shop was. So the first one is Claire Rowlands, and that was 9 North Parade, which was the Rowlands, the butcher shop, originated in the town. I suppose it's the forerunner of the Bag for Life.
Yes.
And
it's lasted.
Yeah, 80 years. So it's not done too badly, has it?
Very good.
So they would be hung on hooks, and people would buy those. And then the picture shows the bottom right, and that is the shop at Mill Street, where my father set up his business in the 50s. That has a string handle. The original bags had no handles at all. And then on the top, there is the blue bag that my father decided when he moved to his new premises that he was going to have a blue theme running through his corporate image. So shop displays, shop signage, all that all went to blue and white. So then I've just lined up some pictures for you to see that the Llew Rowlands bag, that's the Llew Rowlands family business at North Parade.
And look at the phone. Look at the phone number. It's so short.
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah, 470. And that created difficulty because I could remember when my father moved to Great Arcade Street. I think he ordered 1,000 meat bags and put his telephone number on it. And then the exchange added 62 to the number. So he was mad with that. So, but this was the shop that he moved to. I'm sorry it hasn't got the front of it, but this was on the bridge. You can see the bridge on the left of Trevechan. So that was that one. And then this was my father working in his new shop and with his bag. And he was quite unusual in the fact that he always had paper bags. He was the only butcher in Aberystwyth to wrap his meat in greaseproof and brown paper. Right. Most of, well, all the others used newspaper surplus. Mm-hmm. So he was quite conscious of how he presented his food. But unusually, he was persuaded in the 80s to change to plastic bags, which I found amazing. But he did so because he had been told they were more hygienic, that they didn't need to cut down plantations of wood to supply the paper, and they were more durable. So he converted to plastic just before he retired. So I found that That's quite amazing. Yeah. And now, you know, you look again, full circle comes round. The bag for life, you know, the Hessian bags that are produced by companies now are very similar to Llew Rowlands' bag of the 30s, you know. So that was it. And then the third thing I wanted to share with you was the shop display pig. So he used to grace my father's counter, and he is in the background with us here. And he's made of rubber. So he's not lasting very well, I have to say, at the moment. He's a little bent. But he used to display on his tray oxo cubes or mint sauce or apple sauce. And he was used in the window. We bought him when we went up to London. I went up with my father, I must have been 9 or 10, with him when he was choosing all the equipment for the shop. My mother couldn't come because obviously one of them had to be in the shop. So she stayed in the shop and he took me up to London. And when we went into Rushbrooks, he was very interested in the equipment and I was very interested in the pig. And what he didn't know was that we were coming home with the pig, come what may. And he actually gave me the choice of the lamb, the bull or the pig in the end. And we came home with all three, actually. But yes, you know, but I think because, you know, in years gone by, they used to have huge displays which attracted people. These animals actually attracted people into the shop too, because their children would stand outside and look at these animals. And as late as last week, somebody asked me where the pig was. Whilst we were walking on the prom, because they remember them as little children, you know, passing, and so they were used just as a gimmicky thing, really. But I think they are becoming quite rare, because you don't tend to have. They only had one in each shop, sort of thing, if they had them at all. But I can remember my father being rather anxious because having spent on a new cold room and sausage equipment and what have you, that I now was hankering after a pig. So I think he cut his losses and just bought it for me. But I'm sure there are a lot of people in Aberystwyth who have similar memories. You know, I was looking at a picture of Alexandra Road Primary School in the 50s and looking at people who were parents were in trade, and they would have their stories to tell, which is lovely.
Well, let's get the word out there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.